Okay, well, greetings to everyone out there in Cyberland. My name is Mike Preston. I'm here on behalf of Rock from the Heart. Rock from the Heart's mission is to proactively educate people about aortic and heart valve disease, bridging the gap between impacted families and the support they need, while connecting those diagnosed with vital resources and inspiring all through the healing power of music. Very happy to be here today with Keagy, who everyone knows as, and I'll use a cheesy cliche, the heartbeat of Night Ranger. Kelly, thanks for being here. There we go. Where am I finding you today, Kelly?
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona, in a studio, it looks like.
Yeah, this is my home studio here. I've been in here for a few years. Got it all set up so I can work on stuff. And yeah, I mean, I've had the studio or a studio in my house for probably 25 or 30 years, Once we started to work on stuff and we're not in the same town, sometimes, you need to work on, like you need to sing a vocal or whatever, you can do it without getting together, I mean, during COVID, it was perfect, which was like one of the hardest records we ever made because we are always making records, together, recording together and writing together, and it wasn't possible. And so, it was really nice that we could do that and not be in the same room.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I'm here. My connection is because I suffered an aortic dissection during COVID. Now, you are a survivor in your own right. Can you, back in 2017, can you give us a sort of a brief overview of your heart issues? What happened?
Sure. I mean, over the course of maybe 5 years leading up to 17, I had a cardiologist. It was, once a year I'd get checked up. I was, of age, and as soon as you start getting up to, 55, like that, you start, wanting to get checked out. Anyway, that's what I did, and she started to hear like they called it a murmur back then. I think that's when when your valve or your heart makes any kind of like sound other than what it's supposed to, they pick it up and they start watching it, and so over the course of that many years, the doctor, I was in Nashville at the time, she started noticing that she was hearing more of a prominent kind of like backwash is what she called it. So that meant that my valve wasn't sealing right. When it would close, some of the blood under pressure would come back the opposite direction. So it made this kind of sound, but it was very faint in the beginning. And then as it went on, and it didn't seal. Anyway, maybe that's too technical, but, just so that people can understand, when the doctor's saying, yeah, I'm hearing this murmur, ask them exactly what they're hearing. In my situation, I had a bicuspid valve. And normally your valve is this, it's like 3-leaf, and it does this, and seals and opens like that. Well, mine was at birth, it was a defect from birth. And so it was only a 2-leaf valve. So when it closed, it really wasn't like perfectly sealing. After a while, it started to calcify as well. So as you get older, it's nice to kind of like watch those, cholesterol and just, certain things that cause the valves to calcify,
So you weren't, just to clarify, you weren't experiencing any pain or any symptoms of fatigue or anything. It was what the doctors were picking up that you were unaware of.
Some of the symptoms I did have were, when I exercise, I would have a slight shortness of breath in the beginning, like first 5 minutes, because I like to walk fast or run even back then. And so, I had to like really ease into it. And then after my heart got up to a certain rate, I was fine. I didn't have those symptoms. The little bit of tightness in the chest would happen too. So I would like settle into it. And then once I got going, I was fine. Those symptoms went away. So then when the doctor picked that up, I started, he said, are you having shortness of breath? And I started going, wow, like during exercise, So then that's when they got even deeper and they started to measure the valve and stuff like that. So that was really good leading
Yeah.
up to that,
Okay.
so I guess the point of this story is to get checked every year. I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
really important because
Yeah.
nowadays all the equipment they have and software and stuff like that is really good at detecting things. So
Yeah. And a lot of those symptoms people might dismiss as part of the ordinary aging process, where it's not in
yeah,
your
that's
case.
what
Yeah.
I did,
So,
and I'm sure you probably have
yeah.
the same problem. What was
Yeah.
yours though?
Mine, I had an aneurysm that burst. I had full aortic dissection, so I nearly flatlined. So I was very fortunate that they did a CT scan and saw what they were dealing with. Because initially they thought it was a heart attack and they were just going to treat me for that. So when they found out it was a full-blown dissection, it was 12 hours in surgery and 5 days on a ventilator. So
Yeah.
it was an ordeal.
Oh,
What was
man.
the repair? What was the repair process for you? What did they have to do for you?
Well, they replaced the valve with
Okay.
a cow valve from Edwards Live Science. That's a a huge company out in California that makes valves. Um, and I had my wife's uh, relation in her cousin basically worked there, and so we called him about surgery. Surgery. We talked to him about surgeons in the area where I was at, and so I started to be educated a little bit more about what it was going to take. And what they did is they replaced that valve, and they also fixed while they were in there. They fixed any problems that were in there with the mitral valve, and they realized one of the mitral valves was slightly damaged and wasn't doing its job either. So while he was in there for 6 hours, they fixed that. They checked the walls of they made sure there wasn't any aneurysms, no, cloggage that was,
Right.
like all that kind of stuff. So while they were there, they checked all sorts of things to make sure that coming out of it, there weren't any other things that were going to be like, oh, we forgot to look. No, when they go in there, they look at everything. They're really good at
Yeah.
what they do.
Amazing.
Dr.
Amazing.
Rodriguez in 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 Nashville, thank you very much for saving my life. I appreciate it.
I was going to ask about that. I again, mine occurred during COVID. So I was a month in the hospital where visitors weren't allowed. So doctors
Oh,
and nurses and specialists and technicians became sort of my surrogate family, and they rose to the occasion above and beyond. And I found this with other survivors, that you develop a new appreciation for these frontline soldiers and what they
oh,
do for us. You,
absolutely.
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
incredible.
and a weird story with him. He's from Puerto Rico. So when you have a series of meetings, with the surgeon once you commit to having it, and after about the third meeting, we start to talk about what we do and how he was educated. And he was asking about me, and I told him I was a rock musician, and and so he said, "Oh yeah," he said, "I didn't want to say anything, but he said, um, I saw Night Ranger in Puerto Rico in 1984 at the Roberto Clemente Coliseum." And he said, and suddenly he got out of his character and said, "Yeah,"
Oh, that's
and I was
crazy.
like, I go, so I'll sing at your wedding. If it's successful, I'll be at the wedding. I will sing at your daughter's wedding. And, we just joked on it. You're right. It became like a family member. Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how long were you incapacitated for?
In the hospital for like 6 days and then about 5 weeks.
5 weeks,
And it was
which
during an
for a
oxy.
really active guy like yourself must have been quite a transition.
It was. And I was really like, surprised that they wanted you to come out of the surgery and immediately start walking and exercising. So it's like, after a week, they want you to start walking 2 miles, you know, and I was like, what, but it really helps the process of healing incredibly, it just speeds it up.
Yeah.
All that circulation, it gets, you heal with incisions and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it was a real process, but at the same time, it's mental too. At that point, even though it is physical, you have to get your head wrapped around, oh yeah, I'm going to go out every day and I'm going to go walking. You're like, I just came out of surgery,
Right.
major surgery.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but that's how that's part of the healing process that helps you get out of that, like, 2 or 3 week span of, you're like, oh my God, it helps you just jump right out of there mentally and physically.
Yeah, and if you learn anything, do what they tell you. I learned, if they tell you do this, do it. If they tell you don't do that, don't do that. And
Exactly.
you mentioned the emotional psychological. That was one thing I was unprepared for. I knew it was going to be physically traumatic, but the emotional roller coaster sort of ride. And not all bad, but it was sort of a bipolar experience where I nearly died, and yet I was overwhelmed with gratitude that I was still alive, and find
Oh
myself
man.
so happy for friends and family and things like that. Did you go through a lot of that too? Just psychological trauma?
What it was is I was really focused on that. And I didn't, people were really concerned about me and stuff like that. My wife, Jennifer, she was such a huge help with this because we weren't married at the time and she was living here and I was in Tennessee, right? And it was too funny. Well, I have a friend that's going to drive me to the hospital. So you don't have to come out. And she's like, are you kidding me?
Right,
Are you
right.
what? Wait a minute. Let's get you focused on what is
Yeah.
going to happen. And I'm not trying to scare you, but you need help. So that was the one thing I started to go, yeah, I should rely a little bit more on people that want to be there for you. And so that was hard for me because I'm used to, like, okay, let's go. I'm done. I'll
Yeah.
see you guys. Bye. I'm on my
Right.
own. And so once I started to rely on people, and it really kind of, help that whole emotional thing. It's like, okay.
Hmm.
And then mentally, I just focused on, I'm gonna look at that target that's out there 3 4 weeks from now. And I keep focusing on, let's get healed. And I
Yeah.
I would drop into, like, oh my God, what if I can't go back and play? You know, that's my whole life, man. I started
Right.
playing when I was 10 years old, and haven't stopped for 45 years,
Hmm.
with the band anyway. But it's like you're backing into that idea, like, wait a minute, what if you can't play? And I just didn't see it. I didn't see it. I said, no, that's not going to happen. That's
Yeah.
not going to
Yeah.
happen. I'm just going to keep. Well, if I can't play, then I'll be a singer. And so I just focused on that. And that positive energy, which I'm not always positive, especially when you get in that situation. It's hard to be positive coming
Yeah.
from
You got
where
to be
you've been.
realistic. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was a good lesson for me. Like, okay, this is a major thing, but I have to stay at this level. I'm not going to
Yeah.
sink. And if I do, I'm going to do whatever I can to bring myself up here, go out in the woods, like, clear your head, get out of that whole, like, what if, because what happens, it's just like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
go to therapy. I mean, a little bit of that, so that people could go, well, if you think like this, it might help you. So, I mean, it's all those things come into play.
Yeah, and you made some very important points about the family and friends, because people would talk about the ordeal I went through. I just laid flat on my back and let them do what they needed to do. But my friends and family were on pins and needles. Is he going to make it? Is he going to pull through? Is he going to be different? And what do we have to do, or what can we do? And in many cases, they can't do anything but watch and wait. So
Yeah.
it is a family ordeal, and it's good that you mentioned. And your band must have been. What's going on with our drummer? That must
Yeah.
have been.
Oh my God. And, luckily we were on an off season, but they did have 5 shows they had to go through without
Okay.
me,
Yeah.
and, Jack and I do all the lead vocals in the band, so it wasn't just about having a if you got a pro, he can come in and play parts, but it's the vocals. And Jack was just, I mean, him and I talked every day, twice a day. He kept checking
Oh,
on me, and you know,
well,
and I was like, oh my God, that helped so
yeah,
much. He sent me videos of the crowd singing, and stuff like that, and wishing me well. I mean, not everybody's going
yeah,
to have that kind of support, professionally. I mean, so your family is so important, so important. I mean, they must have been just beside themselves, especially when they weren't getting fed
right.
information while the surgery's going on. They're like, oh my God.
What's going
I mean,
on?
did they keep you informed while the surgery was going on, while they
My
were
family,
waiting?
yeah, they would call, by the hour, not by the hour, but every 4 hours or something like that. So it
Yeah,
was, yeah, again, the staff rose above and beyond to the call of duty, and it just, became my surrogate family. So I'm forever grateful for that. But and you mentioned you're not just a drummer and a singer, you're a songwriter. Do you find these days that experience working itself into your songwriting thematically or
oh
anything?
sure. I mean, it does absolutely, because going through life, that's usually what you write about when you're writing,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
situations, life situations. Maybe you're not talking about it exactly like heart surgery, you're not using stuff like that, but you're just using the appreciation of
yeah,
life and love, and uh, the higher powers, that be. I mean, all of those things are so important in keeping you, grounded, and just knowing I can get through this. Everything's going to be fine. Help your family understand. I mean, yeah. So in those writings, that helps them.
yeah.
In the songs that I've been writing and stuff, it's been it's been amazing. To actually use those emotional feelings and
Yeah,
put them down in there.
that's
So
great.
yeah, I mean,
That's great.
it works.
This is a good time for a plug for Rock from the Heart. I discovered Rock from the Heart, not as in the aortic sense initially, but I noticed a pop-up ad for a Grand Funk Railroad concert that I thought I might attend, but then I saw it's in Minnesota in January. I thought, nah, I'm not going to Minnesota in January. What kind of idiot goes to Minnesota in January? And then I saw they were affiliated with Rock from the Heart and this aortic whole thing. I had never heard anyone using the word aorta before, and so I jumped on and attended and got to meet other survivors and talk to people who knew what they were talking about and understood the situation that we've been through and what a traumatic experience it is. So rockfromtheheart.org is their website, the one-stop shop for everything you can find about that. And it's just a great organization. I can't say enough about that. And you've had your own affiliation with Rock from the Heart.
Yeah,
You want to
I
talk
mean,
about that?
Pete and Amy reached out to me right after, um, and Pete was a drummer, and he
Beef?
he
Yeah,
he thought, wow, this guy, he's going to get back out. He's back out there, right? Like 6 weeks after surgery. Oh my God, so it helped him rise above, where you're
absolutely.
at, in the middle of surgery or recovering or whatever. And it was amazing to me to have that kind of the lean on. And so they got me involved in Rock from the Heart early on. Night Ranger played a show for them, and so we really got to know the inner workings of what's going on with Pete and Amy, and how they got started and what got them, inspired to start this. And I think it is all about awareness. I mean, when you go to the doctor, nowadays sometimes you don't, they check you over. Oh yeah, we hear the sound or whatever. But it's important for people to go and do their own research.
So, well, and another thing, let's ask this: what's going on with Kelly and your music these days? What do you got going? I mean, it's amazing to me that you're back in the throne drumming. I mean, it's not like you're returning to work as an accountant sitting at a desk. You're doing a physical workout. You're an athlete, and you and Pete, both a couple of recovering drummers, as we say,
Oh
uh,
my God.
back in the saddle again. That's very, very cool. And what are you working on now?
Well, we've been working for about a year. Night Ranger has on a a best of project. So we're remastering and some of the old catalog, and then some of the last like 5 records. We cherry picked songs off the last 5 records from Frontiers Records. We've been releasing albums from them for many, many years. And so we decided to cherry pick songs that we thought were really great from those series of albums. And then, the big 5 or whatever, the Don't Tell Me You Love Me and the Sister Christian and When You Close Your Eye, and those songs, and remastered them and remixed, some of them. So it's really a special album. And that's coming out in August. And so that'll be fun. That's going to be like a vinyl package, a double album
Oh,
package of
cool.
vinyl, and just a lot of the history and stuff like that. So we're looking forward to that. And then myself, I've been working on this project for probably about the same time, about a year and a half, of songs that were written, you know, 20, 20 years ago, 20, 25 years ago, when I was in Tennessee, with some great writers and songwriters, great songwriters, producers, uh, you know, great studio musicians. And over the years, I put together these songs that were just demos that I was writing that weren't necessarily right for Night Ranger, and so what I did is I put this together over the course of like a year in demos, and then we started to embellish them and work on them and make them better. I got Jim Peterick was one of the writers. I got
from right here in Chicago.
Yeah, that's right. Uh, yeah, great fellow that I've been associated with for like 40 years. I've known him. Also, David Prater, who produced Images and Words for Dream Theater, and he produced Firehouse, and a lot of other successful projects. And he came in and took the helm, took these demos with a team from Fullwell Studios here, and we started to rearrange and just like massage these mixes and make these new songs a whole project. There's 10 songs on there. I think it's going to be called, tentatively right now, it's going to be called Time Waits for No One.
Nice,
So,
nice.
Yeah, that's the title of one of the songs that
And
I helped put together.
And people can stay apprised of all things Kelly Keagy at kellykeagymusic.com. That's your website, and they can find out what's going on there.
Yeah, I was at Facebook, Facebook. I have my own Facebook page, and nightranger.com as well. So we got all those social media things working for us. So.
Awesome. I was thinking about your situation, that it kind of differs from a lot of people's, in that as a public figure, the public kind of want and expect certain things from you in terms of your time and how you spend it. In other words, they want you out on the road playing those songs that we love, and they want you here and now. And, have you found yourself having to get a little selfish with time dissemination or anything like that?
I have been so grateful over the years to be in this situation, and I fought to keep at that level after surgery. That was a major goal for me. It's like, I don't want to get back in the saddle and everybody, and it's noticeable that that you're like, maybe you should step away. Well, you know what, sometimes you have to look at that and go, yeah, you're right. Old athletes, look at, like the quarterbacks, look at the guys that, they come out and they go, yeah, I think I'm going to retire. And it's like, yeah, you're only 40 years old, but yeah, you're beat up pretty good, aren't you? It's like, you just have to use and measure that. I think it's a good goal for me to want to go out there and play 120% for that audience that came to see us. And we're so lucky, 44 years later, people are so coming out to see us. It's like, what? You guys should be like, oh yeah, you should be done with, like stuff. But we can't stop, man. But we got to keep, going with it, because we got to keep being, you know, the creative process is like there's something in there that gets in your gut, and you gotta listen to it. You gotta
Yeah.
come full circle out of situations that happen in life. You got to come out of that if you can, and use all the help you can, and just rise above it. Because life is so complicated, man. There's so much, crap out there with the social media and all the stuff. And sometimes you just got to turn that off, man, and just get grounded again, because
Go to a rock and roll show.
Yes, right, man. You got
And
it.
it's such a cliche, but it's so true that your job is a celebration of life, and more so than ever these days. Now that you have risen above or survived what you survived, and it's so great for the fans. It's a great thing for everybody. And I won't keep you much longer, but people should know, again, get checked out, go to your doctor, get scans, get tests. The Night Ranger isn't going to fix your broken heart if it's really broken, so you got to get checked out by a doctor.
But we can help with that.
That's right.
With that.
With the healing process. So
absolutely.
Kelly, thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's very inspirational. I think you're helping.
And thanks.
So
to
hope to see you out on the road.
I'm sorry.
I hope to see you out on the road, Kelly.
Please. Yeah, we'll be around. All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kelly Keagy.
Take it, Mike.